Let us pray, classmates. So, Lord, we thank you for today, Panginoon. Thank you for giving us the strength to attend another session of our review despite our busy days in the office. Ready our hearts and minds so that we can absorb the lessons to be discussed by Mama Ana. Thank you, Lord, for her life, no, for being an instrument so we could pass the board exam. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Then, can you share the slide for tonight? Sa ano yun, sa Canva. Okay.
Hello, Ma'am Anne.
Hmm? Meron na? Okay. Thank you. So we have, I'll introduce this topic, but for sure, we're not able to complete the presentation tonight, so I would do a partial, parang ano, a portion of the lecture, so we can proceed to the next one. Let me see the next slide. All right, so, hindi yata yung ano, parang ano siya, doon sa harap. Okay, you can proceed to the next one. So, that's supposed to be ano eh, parang poll, ano, tingnan mo nga doon sa ano, na how many of you have, let me check, yung kanina. So, probably Jen can make a poll of, yung kanina Jen, yung 2, slide 2. Okay. So, how many of you have knowledge about the CLUP and zoning ordinance? So, I'd like to know how many percent of the batch 2026 have knowledge already. Of course, knowledge means kahit konti lang ano, knowledge pa din yan. And then, have you participated in the development or evaluation of CLUPs or zoning ordinances, or have you, oh yeah, development or evaluation? So, maybe you have seated in the ilok, parang ganan. So, saan na yan? Nawala ba? Yeah, yeah. I cannot see just a moment. And then the last one there is that, have you read, utilized, or acquired any familiarity with the material contained within the previous or existing HLUR CLUP guidebook? Kasi napakadami ano. So, but if you try to read or look at the earlier guidebooks, parang mas maganda siya nung una kasi meron isang guidebook, it's dedicated to agricultural land use planning, parang gano'n. And then industrial, commercial, parang for each sector, na-divide siya. And then, so those were the earlier guidebooks. And then, I think they're developing another guidebook to incorporate other topics like sidra, ganun. So they would include more, or they would include more extensive aspect of this area. So baka naman may taga HLURB sa inyo. So okay. And then let's see. Maybe you can advance to the next one, Jen. Okay, so just a moment lang. So as we all know, the CLUP is okay, this one is a mandatory plan, 'di ba? So, that's the ano, an LGU land use plan is the official map-based expression of the locality's development vision, turning policy into a spatial strategy that governs how both public and private lands are used, from uplands to lowlands to coastal areas within the watershed that contains the LGU. So it should be systematic, the plan should be systematic, and that's why we have the guidebook, and it should be organized, and it begins with a clear vision, measurable objectives, etc. So, uh, it it said in the first bullet, it's a systematic and organized presentation of the LGU's strategic vision. So, mag-start tayo doon, ano? Vision, objectives, and directions. I remember when, I was just starting, becoming a private, a private consultant. So, I'm not a government consultant or internal, but an external consultant. So I usually, of course, we always start with the visioning workshop. Doon sa visioning workshop na yun, 'di ba, some planners can just state the vision, parang gano'n, parang few seconds lang or few minutes. But, we normally do visioning workshop like 1 to 2 days, just vision alone. Kasi gano'n ka-crucial yung vision, eh. So, it's something like wrong or incorrect vision, incorrect direction of development. So, kapag ka naman poor vision, poor din yung direction. So, hindi man ito incorrect or erroneous, it can be considered as something poor, di ba? Poor lahat. Because you have a poor vision. Parang ganon. So, the land use plan, okay, it said a systematic and organized presentation of the LGU's strategic vision. So it's not just a vision, it should be strategic vision. And then also strategic objectives, direction. So the land use plan frames the LGU's desired end state and the pathway to reach it. So you are trying to, okay, so you try to picture what do you want your LGU to become? So, because that's the end state, and it should be like up to the sustainability layer of it. And then the pathway and how you reach that should be a long story to tell, right? And that's why it's called a long-term plan. So it translates also the approved vision into specific. So and then the objective should be measurable and aligns this with coherent policy directions for settlement, economy, environment, what else? Infrastructure, social services, and many more sub uh, sub task or sub sector. So the document follows a disciplined structure. That's what it's trying to tell us, the first bullet. It states the mandate and scope, presents the evidence base, draws out a diagnosis, and sets the policy or the spatial strategy, the zoning framework, and implementation program. So this organization that we are trying to tell here is that it should ensure internal consistency across actions of the different committees, councils, and then the actions of this council and many other councils, then budgeting. permitting, monitoring, etc. And then the second bullet said translated into a physical and spatial dimension. So policy is rendered into maps. So you have map rendering, then regulations also. Um, there should be regulations because we have the zoning, that we have the zoning ordinance, and then and standards that guide decisions on actual sites. So it should be very site specific. The plan defines the hierarchy of centers and corridors. So you already can picture on how your municipality or your city should look like because there's hierarchy. Like if there's you only have one CBD, then that's monocentric. You only have one center. Then if there are two, you already know what these concepts are. And then center versus corridor. So there's a big difference between that centers and corridors. So and then the plan should also define not only the center and the corridors, but you need to define protection and production landscapes and critical networks for mobility, drainage, utilities, and open space. So it specifies zoning intents as well, allowable and conditional uses. Diba? Meron tayong regulations on that, variance, etc. So that's and density, height control, especially the cities that are following the floor area ratio. And then buffers also, we need to identify, we need to locate, we need the easements and infrastructure reservations. So these spatial instruments make the plan actionable at parcel, neighborhood level, and city scales, and provide a defensible basis for project review and right-of-way protection, among others. Then the next one covers both public and private lands. And so the plan treats the entire territory as a single operating system. Public estates such as roads, rivers, plazas, schools, forest, foreshore areas, they're all planned together with privately owned parcels so networks function and land use rules are coherent. The interface is managed through zoning, development conditions, setbacks, easements. So we need to, you know, the terminologies alone, uh there are there are a lot to to remember, right? Kailangan. And then conservation and protection instruments, the site plan review, land banking as well. And these are tools, acquisition or expropriation when warranted, and where necessary land readjustment. So you know these strategies or regulations. So land readjustment and relocation with livelihood and service access. So just among others. And then the next one is it starts from the uplands to lowlands to coastal ecosystems of the watershed or sub-watershed system where the LGU is located. So the natural system sets capacity and constraint. Analysis begins with watershed boundaries, slopes, soils, aquifer recharge zones, riparian buffers, flood and landslide susceptibility. Ang dami, ano? You need to know all this one. And shoreline dynamics and critical habitats if there are critical habitats in your place. So these layers inform land suitability and conflict analysis and steer growth away from high-risk areas. The result is a spatial strategy that protects the green-blue network or the blue-green network and then improves water security and sediment management, etc. It also reduces flood exposure, safeguards biodiversity, and supports climate adaptation while identifying safe, serviceable areas for compact and connected urban development. A lot. Just one slide, but it tells a lot. And it and that's why we're reviewing, and that's why you need to be licensed, and so that you can help achieve all these objectives. So and it's a lot uh to do really when you're a planner, especially when you're with government. So we can go to the next one, just defining what is CLUP then. I'm sure siguro 90% sa inyo are from LGU, no? So it said the CLUP refers to a document embodying the specific proposals for guiding. So this is a definition from the HLURB guidebook, okay? For guiding and regulating the growth and development of a city or a municipality. So that's the first concept. Second, it considers all sectors significant in the development process, as well as other planning guiding principles and policies. The spatial directions prescribed by the CLUP or CLUP shall have a basis, or shall serve as a basis for the preparation and formulation of the CDP and LDIP of the LGUs. So you see, other plans are connected with CLUP. Because it's the mother plan. So the CLUP then is the LGU's statutory spatial plan, and it's adopted by the Sangguniang and operationalized through the zoning ordinance, location clearances, subdivision review, and building permit processes, and many more. And it translates the LGU vision into a spatial strategy of centers, di ba sinabi ko kanina, centers, corridors, protection areas, then sets policy and development standards that apply to both public and private lands. So its evidence-based covers population and housing, economy, infra, mobility, environment, climate, blah, blah, blah. Ang dami. So the CLUP provides the where. Okay? Where? So it identifies suitable and restricted areas, reserves right of way, and safeguards the green and blue. Di ba sinabi kanina? The blue-green that we're talking about within the watershed context. So, can we proceed to the next one, Jen? Okay. And dalawa naman yung ano, no? There are two comprehensive plans that are mandatory, but as per the local government code for cities and municipalities. So the CLUP is a physical plan, CDP is a multi-sectoral plan. So you have to know how to distinguish that. So I also mentioned earlier that it's the LGU's statutory spatial plan, because it defines the desired urban and rural structure, and identifies protection and production areas, and reserves all these public spaces and other uses. So, and the CDP, what's the difference anyway? And the CDP is the LGU's programmatic plan. It translates the CLUP's spatial strategy into sector outcomes and investment packages covering social development, economic, infrastructure and utilities, environmental management, and institutional development. So the CDP provides the what, and with what resources by detailing projects, services, regulatory reforms, and capacity building needed to deliver the strategy. It also produces the LDIP for multi-year prioritization, aligns with the AIP and budget enabling phased implementation, phased by phased, also monitoring and periodic updating. So if we go to the next one. Okay, so we have that legal basis, right? So if I can read that, the CLUP is the blueprint that the local government unit employs to oversee its entire geographical area. So blueprint means authorized spatial strategy that guides where growth should occur and what must be protected and which standards apply. So it covers all barangays and land tenures. It links settlement structure with infrastructure and environmental management and sets the basis for evaluating subdivisions, rezonings, building permits, public investments, etc. And because it's a territory-wide, it aligns barangay plans, the BDPs, and major projects to one spatial logic and timeline. And so if we can read that section 20 of RA 7160 of the local government code. So the local government units shall, okay, please memorize section 20. See, I mean, kasi baka itatanong anong section yon. So 20C. So the local government units shall, in conformity with existing laws, continue to prepare their respective CLUPs enacted through zoning ordinances, which shall be the primary and dominant basis for the future use of land resources, provided that the requirements for food production, human settlements, and industrial expansion shall be taken into consideration in the preparation of such plans. So, um, this specific provision, it's a the statute. It creates a standing mandate that LGUs must maintain an up-to-date CLUP and give it a legal force by enacting a zoning ordinance. So once enacted, the CLUP and zoning become the dominant reference for land allocation, protection areas, densities, development conditions. And so the clause on food production, kanina, di ba, yung last sentence, food production, settlements, and industry requires explicit balancing. And what do we mean by that? It means we need to safeguard agricultural lands and ecosystems, provide adequate and safe housing locations, and reserve serviceable land for economic activity. So in practice, compliance means periodic plan updating, consistency checks with national policies. So you need to look at the higher hierarchy plans and strategies, and strict use of the CLUP and zoning in permitting the right-of-way, budgeting, etc. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so just reiterating, right, that a document outlining precise suggestions to direct and control the expansion and or progress of a city or municipality, and then strategic plan spanning a minimum of 10 years. So that outlining precise suggestions to direct and control the expansion and the progress of a city. So I already mentioned it's a statutory spatial plan, and then it also becomes the primary reference for public investment decisions and private development proposals. And then in the second, number 2 is a strategic plan spanning a minimum of 10 years. So the plan sets a medium to long-term plan or range to shape the settlement structure while remaining adaptable to new data and shocks. You know the different shocks. So many LGU use a 9 to 12 horizon with a scheduled midterm review as well. But of course, you can do more frequently. And so this window is long enough for land readjustment, redevelopment to take place, etc. So phasing phasing is expressed through a prioritized investment program that aligns with the LDIP and annual budgets, so projects, incentives, and regulations advance the same spatial strategy over time. And so it's a mechanism for overseeing land. Number three, land and natural resources at the local level. So the plan manages the entire territory as one system that includes public estates and private parcels. So the analysis begins with the watershed and coastal context to reshape or to respect slopes, recharge zones, floodplain, shorelines, habitats, and many more. So, uh, we we assign suitable uses, right, for the plan. Then, we protect sensitive areas, and we should know which ones are sensitive areas. And then what are the implementation tools? It includes zoning, easement, conservation instruments, development conditions, acquisition were justified, and when necessary, relocation. That should be humane, uh, and it should be linked to services and livelihoods, which LGUs, especially in metropolitan areas, are not really very good at doing. Uh, nirelocate mo nga sila, but services and livelihoods are absent if if not limited. So regular monitoring also, track outcomes such as exposure to hazards, and then if your housing projects are near jobs and transit, and so compliance with standards also, ensuring responsible stewardship of land and natural resources. So we can go to the next. So it's just showing the next slide that uh, the three books there. Pero parang laging nagbabago yun. They continue to correct anyway, kahit yung title man lang, because I saw a guidebook before na yung zoning ordinance is volume 2, parang ganun. They try to rearrange anyway. So, volume 1 is the planning process. If you can, pag ma-master nyo kasi yung volumes 1, 2, 3, and then the CDP, pwede na kayong mag-top, no? Because it comprises 45%. So, dalawa ang topic lang talaga yung major topics in the, in that 45% on planning processes. So, okay, planning process, and then sectoral analysis and tools for situational analysis, then model zoning ordinance. All right, so we can go to the next one. Let me check that. Okay. So what are we saying there? That it's trying to say my climate change. So what is the rationale for enhancing the guide? So anyway, because they need to um integrate all those to integrate climate change into local land use policies and development strategies while enhancing the RR and management efforts. So land use decisions now need climate information at the same level of importance as population, economy and infrastructure. So plans should use hazard and exposure maps, then temperature and rainfall projections, also sea level rise scenarios, and water balance analysis to steer growth away from high risk areas and to set risk-based standards for elevation, setbacks, permeability, and open space, among others. So implementation tools include risk-informed zoning, protection of recharge zones and riparian buffers, drainage, and many more. And also siting of critical facilities outside no-build areas. So alignment with the LGU's LCCAP, the RRM plan ensures that land regulation, investments, and preparedness measures and prepared measures pull in the same direction and are monitored through outcome indicators such as reduced exposure and faster recovery times, etc. And then yung ridge to reef approach, I know most of you are very familiar, if not all of you. So the necessity of incorporating both coastal and forest lands into city and municipal land use plans to create a comprehensive physical plan. So normally, the forest land use plans are being done uh, independently, right? You can also do that, and sometimes there's a need really, especially if the municipality has huge, pag malaki yung forest zone ninyo, and then DNR, sino ba yung anong specific hierarchy ng DNR yung gumagawa. So, um, or LGU can do it alone, or meron namang no, assistance from DNR. And then, pwede rin na i-merge. So, you don't merge as if i-insert mo lang yung pages, ano? So, there ought to be some integration efforts in that. Um, so, because, using the watershed and coastal system as the planning frame links uplands, lowlands, rivers, floodplains, estuaries, and shorelines into one spatial plan. So forest and agroforest, for example, or forest and agroforest management upstream influence sediment, flooding, and water supply downstream. Also, coastal and marine uses affect fisheries. It also affects mangroves and storm surge protection. So, a ridge to reef CLUP maps and secures headwater forests also, recharge areas, river and lake buffers, floodways, riparian isthmus. Ang dami, wetlands, baka may makalimutan ko ako, mangroves also, coral reefs for sure. So, it then assigns suitable urban and production areas in safe, serviceable locations and reserves right of way for mobility and utilities. So, the approach support I'm referring to the ridge to reef. It supports nature-based solutions. It also clarifies inter-LGU coordination along shared watersheds kasi hindi naman was 1:1 yan, 'di ba? So a watershed could include several LGUs. Okay, and it provides a defensible basis for permits, enforcement, and investment sequencing. So, when we go to the next slide. So, ano pa yung nakalimutan? Meron ba ako nakalimutan doon? So, downstream urban growth areas are then placed only in safe. It should be serviceable locations and tied to reserved right of ways for mobility and utilities. So please don't forget that. So we have the elements of enhanced CLUP guidelines. So it included CCADRRM mainstreaming in the CLUP. So under the ecosystems, there are special areas. I already lectured on the special area and just check the Zoom recording, okay? But I will always still incorporate it, but nagkaroon na ako ng lecture on special area. So it comprises two, 'di ba? Ecosystems and the special area. So CCA, I mean we need to, okay, just a moment. So I'm not going to lecture anymore on that. special area. So, in the CCA DRRM mainstreaming, uh, we use multi-hazard maps, exposure and vulnerability data, and climate projections to delineate no-build zones. But of course, all of this that I'm telling would be described next time in the CLUP, the 12 steps, okay? Just introduce this one. So, we also so we align this with the LCCAP and the DRRM plan. So regulation, investments, and preparedness operate on the same assumptions with indicators that track reduce exposure and faster recovery. So in that ridge to reef, of course, we plan the area as one connected system. I mentioned already earlier, from uplands to coast. So, and then we assign land uses and densities only after ecosystem functions and hazard constraints are secured. So did you get that? Uh, so, in forest area, um, we delineate. It's just so necessary to delineate protection and production forests. Okay, the recharge zones and steep slope areas. So, because we need to prohibit settlement expansion in high risk or protection zones and regulate agroforestry and extraction with erosion control, buffer strips, and access management. So, forest management upstream is tied to downstream flood, water supply, and sediment objectives. So in the coastal area, or when doing that within the ecosystems approach, uh, we need to map storm surge and sea level rise scenarios for sure also, and easements or easement limits, mangroves, seagrass. We need to do all this one, and coral reefs if any, if available. Okay, and then we establish coastal protection and sustainable use zones. We regulate reclamation. The city or the municipality is thinking about that strategy. And then shoreline hardening also, like stabilization, or and plan relocation or elevation where risk is intolerable. Fisheries access, also the ports, and then tourism nodes are cited to avoid habitat loss and navigation conflicts, because we're talking about coastal planning here. Biodiversity, we need to identify key biodiversity areas, the critical habitats, the wildlife corridors, and riparian buffers. So we use overlays and performance standards to limit fragmentation, and it also requires planting of native uh, plants, native planting, and control also lighting, fencing, and noise near sensitive areas. Okay, so we need to do both. uh we need to protect also with livelihood options such as regulated ecotourism, and then especially my turtle preservation, etc. Or my ano pa ba yung mga I usually make some identification, ano yung mga regulated ecotourism, and when do we say that it's regulated ecotourism that we are trying to do. And if we anong valuation, I forget the term, but I've done this before in one of the webinars. Yeah, ecosystem services. So if we, for AFIBA, parang payments. So anyway, I'll proceed with the special area. hindi spatial but special area, that these are policy overlays, diba? That I already mentioned in previous lectures, that require rules beyond zoning or base zoning to protect rights, character, and performance of specific places. It means it's an on top of the zoning, the base zoning, and then there are layers also. So that's what we call the special areas. So and we need, because we need to protect the rights, character, and performance of specific places like ancestral domain. We recognize domains and claims consistent with IPRA. Um, we need to ensure ano na yun, FPIC, the um, prior informed, ano na yung FPIC, for projects. It also reflects that should reflect ADS-DPP projects. The ADS-DPP is the Ancestral Domain Sustainable Development Protection Plan, parang ganun. Um, so these are supposed to be prioritized, and we need to harmonize land use designations with customary tenure and resource use. So we within this special area of ancestral domain, there's a need to establish protocols for cultural sites and traditional livelihoods. So in the green growth, there's a need to promote compact, mixed use. So these are key concepts, okay? But you can do more than this one. I mean, you can add more strategies. And then there's transit-oriented development, then energy and water efficient buildings also. And then uso na rin yung circular economy zoning for recovery and treatment facilities, and nature-based solutions also for cooling and flood management. And then we can also use incentives and development conditions to shift private projects toward low carbon, resource efficient outcomes. And there's a lot really to be, if you can be more strategic, more, ang tawag mo doon, more, uh, artistic, or when you can be more, you can incorporate culture and all these things here in these four areas, and that you can do that through heritage conservation. That first thing is you need to make an inventory of the built heritage and cultural landscapes under Republic Act 10066 and local ordinances that support it. Okay, support heritage conservation. And then you apply heritage and conservation overlays. So there's a map rendering in that particular task. And then you also express, or you incorporate adaptive reuse provisions with technical guidelines for material and facade treatment, like alavigan type of development. And then you link conservation areas to tourism circuits. I've done this for anong LG. I think it's Santa Rosa. So we link conservation areas to tourism circuits. So please note the terminologies and other type of strategies. So in urban design as well, we set local specific form and other standards, public standards. And then we try to consider the street and block structure. So mostly architects are doing it. I think the architects are, the most logical field that undertakes urban design, but of course it's not limited to the architects alone. But if you are an architect, environmental planner, and then so it's the best combination to do urban design, which is not really the environmental planning that we're trying to study, but it's an extra or a something that, you know, because we need to do some, we look at the build to lines and heights, and then we need to look at the frontage and active edge requirements and arcades, mga ganon, something that you can express our artistry. And then we also need to look at the street trees and sidewalk minimums and parking management as well. So we use design review in identified districts to secure quality places while keeping processes predictable. So when go to the next one, Jen, yung next na slide dyan, just to introduce that, okay, next one, advance mo siya. Okay, hindi, yung integrated ecosystem management sa the IEM, sige lang, keep going. Ayan, yan. Okay. So, integrated ecosystems management approach, it's also in the guidebook. Okay. Meron na yan, ano? So, ridge to reef pa rin siya or watershed. So, again, hmm, sige, i-advance mo nga. Okay. I already mentioned about the uplands and lowlands are economically, politically, ecologically, and biophysically interconnected and interdependent. So what happens upstream shapes safety and livelihoods downstream. So forests cover farming practices, the road cuts there, control runoff, sediment, base flow, that determine flooding, water supply and reservoir in the plains. So, yun yung, these are happening in that because, people and goods also move along these gradients. So, markets, utilities, and governance are tied together through watersheds and transport corridors rather than the boundaries in the city or in barangay. So the plan should therefore use the watershed as the analytic frame or the framework that uh, when you uh, set shared targets across LGUs, and when you coordinate rules and investments also on forests, on riparian buffers, on floodways, and water allocation. So indicators include dry season flows. I mean, these are very engineering part, but it's important for us planners to um, be able to prepare indicators by ourselves. So, like, ano yung flood depth, yung depth of the flood and duration, parang ganon. So these are something that these are indicators under this one. And so the effects of climate change and disasters necessitate a comprehensive and integrated approach to planning. And so you're saying that in the bullets, because there would be more intense rainfall, and there would be where we are talking about sea level rise, the storm surge, what else? Heat and drought. And they all amplify existing risks, and they expose gaps in siting, site development, and when you are doing design also. So there's a need indeed to prepare a risk-informed CLUP that integrates projections and climate, multi-hazard maps also, exposure and vulnerability analysis. Kasi magkaiba ito, di ba? And so these are very scientific, these are scientific terms that are needed for us to understand. And then the critical facility audits also. So the results are converted into spatial policies such as no build, ganon, and control use zones, and then the elevation and setback rules. Easements, mga gano'n, ang daming dapat na ano. And then we also need to um incorporate the heat mitigation measures. So implementation aligns the CLUP and zoning with the DRRM plan and LCCAP, so regulation, public works, emergency planning, etc., and maintenance follow the same risk assumptions. So nature-based solutions are prioritized where feasible, including there's what we call the mangrove belts, and there's what we call also the river greenways, watershed rehabilitation as part of these, nature-based solutions. And so monitoring focuses on reduce people and assets in high-risk zones. So you get that? And continuity of operations during extreme events and recovery time after shocks. So then it said offers a structure. So I think I'm reading the last bullet there. Offers a structure for the sensible utilization of protected areas and how it will supplement the utilization of agricultural and development lands, or what we call the ANDs. Okay, so protected areas under national law secure by their biodiversity, ecosystem services, and disaster mitigation functions. So the CLUP recognizes protected areas boundaries, so the buffer zones as well, and how we prescribe the management prescriptions, and then harmonizes them with the LGU's base zoning. So around protected areas, the plan defines compatible uses, the access controls, and ecological corridors to prevent fragmentation. So on the agricultural and development lands, or the A&D lands, it's understood as that A&D areas are that host settlements, farms, and economic zones. I mean, the plan directs compact growth to safe and serviceable locations. Correct ba yung sinabi ko? So, protects also prime agricultural land. So, when we do that, when we try to identify, or when we try to supplement the utilization, or we are talking about the A&D lands or A&Ds. So we also we try to look at so which instruments could we include? Okay, so we include conservation and agricultural overlays. The parang wala namang transferable development rights, pero TDRs, but in other countries, TDRs are very much, they leverage this one. But I will explain about these strategies. And then there's ano pa ba? So this is structure, because it said offers a structure for the sensible utilization of PAs and ANDs. So this structure allows the PA system, the protected area system, to perform its ecological role, while A&D lands deliver housing, jobs, and services in a way that does not undermine the very ecosystems that support them. So you know now the role of the PA, the protected area, versus the A&D lands. So we go to the next one. I think I have anong oras na? So the next one there, sustainable forest, biodiversity disaster. So I think I don't need really to talk on this, you know very well. Just to go back to the integrated coastal management there, that we use a ridge to reef framework that links sediment control upstream with shoreline stability and fisheries health downstream. So we establish coastal, land, and sea use zones um, that recognize navigation, ports, aquaculture, tourism, fisheries, and conservation areas. So we need to enforce forest easements. We need to establish setback lines and storm surge and sea level rise scenarios for siting and design. So we need more planners to specialize on this one, especially coastal management. Kasi very rare yung nag-specialize ng ganito nun. So, we also need to protect and restore mangroves and seagrass. How about reclamation? Is a very controversial strategy. So we also need to understand why we still have Philippine Reclamation Authority. So, and they've been in a hot seat for ilang consecutive years na, no, by Senate, especially when there are some public hearings and public inquiries, parang ganun. So, and so what I'm trying to say here is that there's a need to protect all this one, restore all this mangrove, sea groves, and many more. And so there's a need to coordinate with adjacent LGUs. So if you belong to this LGU, and there's a need to coordinate with the adjacent LGUs along shared protected area, watershed, and apply consistent permitting and enforcement supported by water quality and habitat monitoring. So these are very important task. So, ano pa ba? Sige nga, Jen, tuloy natin na if you look at so there's a need for before that, there's a need for an integrated approach, that sets clear spaces for fisheries, navigation, for conservation, tourism, and settlement, and keeps public access through foreshore easements. And so with setbacks guided by surge and sea level scenarios, and with mangrove, seagrass, and beach dune systems intact, coastal towns would be more ready or risk, ang tawag doon, risk informed. The plan should be risk informed, but so I mean mm, it could be more, we experience smaller losses, especially when typhoons and storms arrive. So we could be more prepared, 'di ba? Ano pala, risk proof if we can do that. So, okay. Then, that one is, okay. forests and forest lands in the CLUP. Number one, yeah, a forest. So a forest is a link system of what? Vegetation, soils, water, wildlife, and human use. So, the canopies there and the ground cover, they regulate runoff. They recharge aquifers and they reduce erosion. So, soils store water, right? 'Di ba nung high school tayo, we even know that yung mga gano'n, 'di ba? That soils store water and nutrients, so rivers and riparian zones move water and sediments and serve as habitat corridors. So these biophysical parts support goods such as timber and non-timber products and services such as water supply, flood regulation. It also serve as carbon storage and cooling. So in the CLUP, these links are mapped so that protection forests secure regulating services while production forests support livelihoods without undermining the system that makes those livelihoods possible. And so the scope of forested areas, okay, you can read there the scope of forested areas and the condition of forest resources. So it means that the plan needs a clear picture of where forests are and how they are performing. So this includes extent by protection and production class. So vegetation cover, canopy condition. So these are the things that you need to include in your inventory. So how are the slopes, elevation, the tenure and use rights in that area, and proximity to settlements and roads. And you have to be very familiar. Also, where inventory exists, you add timber and non-timber stocks also. DNR can supply that data or data, and then the critical habitats as well. There's always inventory of that. And headwater location. So condition is shown by um, trends in cover, fragmentation, fire, and pest history also. Ang daming ano, no? You know, data that you need because you also need to do water quality inventory of what is the condition in the water quality downstream. So this baseline lets you or lets the LGU choose which blocks must be secured and which can support sustainable use and where restoration will yield the highest benefit. So if we look at the volume 1 and itong mga lahat ng sinasabi ko andun lahat. You can see all those things in volume 1. So, what are the challenges and risks then? So what are the current problems and dangers that could exacerbate the degradation of the forest? So you can see what I'm trying to say nandun. So, typical pressures are conversion on steep or highly erodible slopes. So if you can imagine that you are utilizing these highly erodible slopes as informal expansion along new roads or weak control of quarrying or upland agriculture. So climate change adds heat and variable rainfall that stress regeneration and raise fire risk as well. So these pressures show up as increased sediment loads or a shorter reservoir life or deeper floods and habitat isolation. So the CLUP addresses risk by removing incentives to settle on protection slopes, uh, managing access or keeping riparian and ridge buffers intact and concentrating any allowable use in locations that can carry it. So restoration is prioritized where it reduces downstream damage and reconnects habitat. So those are the challenges and risks. Um, because we don't want to degrade our forest area. So what are now the responsibilities and duties of the LGUs in the conservation, development, management, and governance of forests? So LGUs need to align your CLUP and zoning with national classification and watershed plans. So, and you identify protection and production forests on land use map and enforce this through permits and subdivision and building approvals. Um, so there's coordination there's a need to coordinate with adjacent LGUs I mentioned already earlier. It's required indeed to coordinate with adjacent LGUs where watersheds and coastal systems are shared. So there's also a need to monitor uh sediments, what else? Water quality and then compliance rates. So results feedback into midterm plan when you update, but not necessarily that you do midterm. You can do earlier than that. You don't need to wait for 4 to 5 years to update. If there's uh, a a phenomenal occurrence of something else in your city or in your municipality, and there's a need to update every bit of those developments or progress. So some ano yun, um, if there are occurrences of um, mga risks or shocks, so you need to update your CLUP. So there's also results feedback immediately into to the short to midterm or long term. And so you need to also and budget priorities also um are needed. You prioritize budget. So forest management should be continuous rather than you are just responding to the risks that have been occurring one at a time. Or so you need to be really very concerned about forest management. Then biodiversity preservation. I mean, I think I'm done with that, so monitoring and evaluation should pay attention to indicators that should be your guide, and should focus on habitat uh, habitat and its condition, um, and many other concerns, like especially when you need to look at your drainage and your fishery areas, that which demonstrates why integrating biodiversity into CLUP is not really an add-on, but it's a practical way to safeguard public services and lower long-term cost. So we can go to the last slide that I can do tonight, so that um I can continue tomorrow. So these are because we've been talking about protected areas earlier in the protected area and the AND, right? So this is the legal basis of protected areas in the Philippines. So it started with the Commonwealth Act of 3915. It was called National Parks Act. So this statute created the earliest legal basis for setting aside scenic and scientific areas as national parks. So it allowed the national government to reserve and manage tracts for conservation and public enjoyment, and forming now the backbone of later protected area laws toward, the latest one, which is the expanded or the
Ann?
hello?
Sorry to interrupt po. Ma'am, tama po ba yung slide? Sorry, napindot ko po kasi kanina.
Yung timeline, yung legal basis. Yan. 'Di ba kanina yan yung so you were able yan, hindi, okay na yan, timeline. So anyway, nandiyan pa lang naman ako sa Commonwealth Act 3915. So, iyan yung pinakaano niya, foundational law. And then after, so it took a while, 1932, and then 1987. I mean, that's the Philippine Constitution pala. And in the Philippine Constitution, it said that the national park is a land classification. Okay, that Congress sets the limits of national parks. So in art, that's you can read that in Article 12, I think. Article 12, ano? So that it classifies lands of the public domain and elevates national parks to a constitutional land classification. So it also assigns to Congress the task of fixing by law the specific limits of forest and national parks. So in planning terms, LGUs cannot convert or reclassify these areas through a local action look or legislation through zoning ordinance. That's not possible. So, I mean to convert it. So, CLUPs must recognize these statutory boundaries and treat them as, you need to be compliant of this specific provision in the Constitution. So, it should always, all actions should also be DNR should be consulted at all times, especially when you know on management and buffer rules of national park. So in June 1, 1992, RA 7586, ang tagal na 82. And then there's the NIPAS Act of 1992. So please remember all this legislation. Natanong talaga yan sa board exam. So, NIPAS establish a unified system. So, di ba system yung pinag-usapan natin kanina? And so, NIPAS establish a unified system for identifying, second, for proclaiming, because pinoproclaim yung NIPAS na yan, and managing protected areas. So, what are the categories? For example, what are these categories that we are talking about here? The natural parks, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. So, who's regulating or who's managing or who's overseeing? It's the PAMB. So, Protected Area Management Boards or PAMBs. So, let me see, it's the PAMB, and then meron ding management plans that should be prepared, and then so we need also to identify buffer zones. So this NEPA's law or Act of 1992 clarified prohibited acts and allowed zoning within protected areas for strict protection and multiple use. So, for CLUPs, NIPAS areas and buffers become overlay constraints with aligned allowable uses, and then access management, and there's also a need to do project screening through the PAMB. So there are paperworks here. And then after 2018, 1992, and then through to 2018, so there was RA 11038, which is now the expanded NIPAS Act of 2018. So NIPAS updated the system by declaring many sites by law. So ibig sabihin itong mga NIPAS, it's just a matter of listing or providing an expanded list of those that have been declared as protected areas. It also this law also strengthened enforcement and penalties also, and then it also clarified buffer zone treatment. It also standardized management planning and fees. It also closed gaps where areas were only administratively proclaimed. For LGUs, the update requires immediate reflection of final statutory boundaries and buffer provisions in the CLUP and zoning ordinance as well, and then integration of PAMB rules in permit review. So there's a need to do that, and align investments so that settlements and roads, also tourism and utilities do not undermine protected area objectives. So there's a need really to be very conscious about these laws, because it's important that, but we to observe all these rules governing protected areas. Okay, so I need to end here, Jen, so that I can continue tomorrow. Thank you.